is really part of something I engender in my team. And I'm going to walk through a little bit of my actually career path as maybe a source of inspiration for all you students, because maybe like you, I started out in university um, actually as an architect, but even before I became an architect, a very young age, I was very much into model making and video games. And so this image here is kind of the reference for me. It's actually a model built with Legos of Nintendo, and I even had video game consoles that even predated the Nintendo, just to kind of to date myself. But what I found interesting with Legos, you were able to basically construct digital models of something and sort of simulate a future state before you actually built it. And then video games is also a way to kind of get yourself into like a digital world, like a prototype world. And for me, this idea of model making in video games, in fact, when I sort of was thinking about how I want to talk about to you today, goes way back even before I even had an idea of like where my career was going to go. And ironically enough, it's exactly where I'm at today in my career. Like this whole idea of model making and video games are now merging in a really interesting way. So I just kind of want to set that up to say that whatever your passion might have been or interest, even as a young kid, can find a way to actually carry itself all the way through your career in ways that you maybe never could have possibly imagined. And so for me, actually going through architecture school, undergraduate and graduate school, when I was a graduate at MIT, I got exposed to explicit 3D and parametric modeling. And at this point, I sort of had to make a decision in my career, continue working for an architect. I was employed by an architect in grad school, using 3D modeling and parametric tools for architecture, or pivot and take a bit of a risk and join a startup. And I went the startup route, in fact. And the company I joined at the time was called Revit Technology. It was a small startup out of Boston, and they were hiring domain experts, architects out of school. In this case, right out of MIT. So I was part of a select group of students who just ended up in this startup, and we got to reimagine and reinvent digital architecture tools. And if you're familiar with the product Revit, I had a first row seat and actually hands-on experience in developing that software and bringing a new way of thinking about CAD into the market. That was really cool. And that was all about 3D modeling and designing interactions for 3D modeling. So I was able to kind of carry my love of architecture and 3D modeling and form making right into the actual software experience itself. Um, and sort of once that product stabilized, I was like, well, I was ready to kind of take on the next challenge. And once you kind of get into this, into the sort of that startup mentality, it's hard to let go of it. So I actually left Autodesk and I joined another startup called Synchro Software. In this case, this was adding the element of animation and time and construction sequencing to 3D models. And so this was really cool. It was now going beyond just almost back to the Lego idea. If you ever build Legos, it's a step-by-step instruction manual on how to build something. It's not just here's a bunch of bricks and figure it out. Actually, you follow a series of steps. And so Synchro was a lot like that. It was like, wow, I'm suddenly building software like you'd build Legos, but actually for large scale, massive construction projects all over the world. So it's a way to kind of again carry these ideas forward into software itself. Super amazing. And by evolving that product, then that led actually to the being acquired by Bentley Systems. That's how I came into Bentley Systems, is through our startup being acquired. And now, even within Bentley, it wasn't enough to just keep building Synchro. I've actually brought gameplay back into the system, and I'm going to show you that in a second. What does it mean now to take things like Unreal Game Engine and Unity and Xbox controllers like this, which I'm using on a regular basis, and VR interactive headsets. These are all part of my daily, workspace, and bring that into the market. And without going maybe out of bit, like how can we innovate internal? So just if you haven't, if you're familiar, I don't know if you've seen these tools. This is a shot of Revit. I was the lead designer for a lot of the features in this tool. And the innovation here was actually thinking outside the box. Instead of using layers and everything you're familiar with layers, we actually invented this idea of tools named after the object you're creating. So the wall tool, window tool, door tool, these were all very new concepts. Didn't exist until we came up with that. Everything at this point was abstract layer systems. This is Synchro. Looks a bit familiar. Took a lot of my learnings from Revit and just injected it right into Synchro. The interface is quite similar, but in this case, we introduced a construction timeline, the ability to animate through construction using a construction sequence. And oops, I want to share, these are some examples of actual work as a result of internal sort of hackathons that we did as my team. So on the top left, actually, one of the first examples, we took a HoloLens, a virtual reality, mixed reality headset, and did digitally align the construction models with the physical job site. So this is prototyped and hacked together, you should say, with a client here in London for Crossrail, where the user could actually see construction animation sequencing through a mixed reality headset. Top right was a huge project, Santiago Airport in Chile. I actually visited all these sites, by the way. Cool thing about this job transition when you get into software, instead of maybe just working on one or two pieces of architecture in the city you happen to live in, software allows you to go visit locations all over the world and see how different localities and different environments adopt and use this software. So it's a really exciting project to work on in Chile. Bottom left is also interesting. This is now taking photogrammetry models and from a drone capture and rendering that inside of a mixed reality headset. First time this had ever been done. Again, all hacked together with a small team, by the way. The team that built that, 3 or 4 of us, were able to build that experience and get 3D, like high resolution 3D models running in mixed reality. And the platform we're using for these, all 3 of these, was Unity game engine. And then the bottom right, you see kind of immersive projection systems. What's it like to have game-like play with that? So these are all kind of interesting opportunities to think about if you're already building 3D models. Actually, the potential for these 3D models to be expanded to more and more people and invite more participation, I think is unparalleled today, especially with game engines. And I'll show this one too. This is let's see if this is going to play. It's a video. We actually just produced this about a bit of an internal hackathon, I would say. Sort of the same idea. We built this entire example recently for our Year in Infrastructure Award. And when you think about what is the metaverse, the way I approach it, and I encourage all of you to think about, is just to go try it and just make something and see what you learn from it. So I said, I want to make a metaverse experience for our Year in Infrastructure Awards event here in London that could work on desktop and also in VR. And so rather than just talk about, the metaverse is a virtual world and it's using game engines, we decided to just go ahead and build one. And with a small team, again, not more than 4 or 5 of us, but we're able to pull this together in less than a month. And it's all about combining a lot of the parts and pieces that might already exist and just putting together in new ways. So what you see here is running video, running text, pulling content. And then the new thing that we figured out here was how to teleport from one location to another. And even these sort of magical moments of like, teleporting up into like a space station, for example. The cool thing about using these game engines is there's no real limit to your creativity. And obviously you see that if anyone plays any mainstream indie games, you know what I'm talking about. Games allow creativity to just emerge and take flight. But what's cool here, rather than just let's make a fun game, here you see this is a real recording right off of real-time gameplay. Now flying through a highly detailed, fully engineered BIM CAD model with an Xbox controller at high frame rate. And so what does that kind of mean for us in our industry? So this is kind of a sort of thought I want to lead you with is like um, whatever your passion might be, it may seem childish, in fact. It's like a Legos or building models or that kind of like intrinsic desire to create something. What I've found personally is carrying those with me into my professional life has allowed me to like create incredible experiences like this, which I think this is for me, I think the next level, this is sort of this metaverse, like what's the next kind of level of experience that it's not just fun and games, but actually delivering huge value for the professionals that we all serve or intend to become architects, engineers, builders. And so with that, I just kind of want to end with a quote from Matthew Ball, and I encourage everyone to kind of read this book. It's a quick read. I think he does a great job of talking about the metaverse, this new medium that is emerging. And if I think about 3D, BIM, 4D, and what might be next, I think it's the digital twin. You're right. And the digital twin is going to become a foundation for what we think is the metaverse. And so think about this massively scaled, interoperable network of real-time rendered 3D virtual worlds that can be experienced synchronously and persistently by an effectively unlimited number of people. So I can imagine a time in the not so distant future where all of us will be together reviewing the results of your hackathon in a metaverse together. And I won't just be a little head on a screen. I could be actually meeting all of you together with your avatar, and you could walk me right through your model, and we could have a full-blown discussion about that. And I think that is the future. And I think your generation, right? You're the ones that will be now the next level that will be, you know, the new Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, inventing these new experiences and new ways of interacting with our physical and digital world, our physical and digital selves. So I hope to all see you next time, if not in person, in the metaverse. So thank you so much.